You are underwater, not metaphorically. Actually underwater, off the coast of New Zealand, and you are running out of reasons to believe this ends well. The current took you further than you expected. Your arms stopped cooperating about 3 minutes ago. The shore is visible, but it might as well be a painting on a wall, for all the good it's doing you right now. And then something large moves beneath you. You assume, reasonably, that this is the part where things get significantly worse. Instead, a bottlenose dolphin surfaces directly beside your face, makes deliberate eye contact, and begins pushing you toward shore with its rostrum. Then another joins, then a third. They are not panicking, they are not playing, they are working, coordinated, calm, and completely unbothered by the fact that you are a completely different species with no obvious claim on their attention, or their energy, or their risk. You survive. The dolphins leave without waiting for a thank you. Here is the question that should sit uncomfortably in your chest for a moment. Those dolphins gained nothing. They risked a great deal. And they chose you anyway. A slow, panicking, hydrodynamically embarrassing mammal who had no business being that far from shore. Why? Not just why did it happen once. Why does this exact pattern? Wild animals choosing to spend energy, take on risk, sometimes die protecting a creature outside their own species, show up across dolphins, elephants, humpback whales, ravens, gorillas, and at least one famously heroic pig named Lulu, who stops traffic on a Pennsylvania highway in 1998 to flag down help for her unconscious owner. The answer is not what you have been told. And once you understand what is actually driving this, you will never watch one of those viral animal rescue videos the same way again. Let's start with the one case that breaks every existing explanation, because most of what gets said about animals saving humans relies on a framework that collapses completely the moment you look at this particular bird. The greater honeyguide lives across sub-Saharan Africa. It cannot break into a beehive. Bees are dangerous, hives are defended by thousands of stinging insects, and a small bird has no realistic path through that defense alone. Humans, however, have fire, tools, and several thousand years of accumulated knowledge about subduing bees without dying in the process. The honeyguide knows this. Not metaphorically, measurably, demonstrably, testably knows this. The bird finds the hive, flies toward a human honey hunter, calls loudly and persistently with a specific vocalization, and then leads that person through difficult terrain directly to the nest. The human opens the hive, takes the honey, and leaves the wax and larvae the bird actually wanted. Clean division of labor, mutual benefit, completely voluntary on both sides. In 2016, researcher Claire Spottiswoode at the University of Cambridge tested this experimentally in Mozambique. Local honey hunters use a specific cooperation call passed down through generations. When Spottiswoode's team played that exact call compared to control sounds of identical volume and duration, the honeyguides responded with measurably different behavior. The cooperation call doubled the probability of being guided to a nest from 33% to 66%. It tripled the probability of successfully finding honey from 17% to 54%. Think about that. A wild, undomesticated bird has developed a specific communication signal used exclusively to recruit humans for a shared task, not to warn humans, not to tolerate humans. To recruit them, the bird is not reacting to noise in its environment. It is recognizing one specific human signal among many competing sounds and responding with functionally accurate understanding of what that signal means. This is not instinct misfiring. This is not a protective reflex accidentally extending to an unintended target. This is a wild species that evolved a dedicated communication channel specifically because working with humans paid off reliably enough across enough generations to become a fixed behavioral feature of the entire species. That is a completely different category of behavior than everything else in this video. And it means the standard explanation, animals accidentally save humans because their instincts misfire in our direction, cannot be the whole story. Here is something that should make you genuinely reconsider the tidy evolutionary explanation that usually gets offered for all of this. The standard framework goes like this. Animals that live in cooperative social groups, elephants, dolphins, wolves, primates, already have deeply wired protective instincts toward vulnerable members of their own group. Those instincts evolved to protect calves, injured herd members, packmates. Occasionally, a vulnerable human triggers the same recognition cues: smallness, distress signals, proximity, helplessness, and the protective circuitry fires toward us by mistake. We are accidental beneficiaries, lucky bystanders who occasionally fit close enough to the pattern. This explanation is real. It explains a meaningful portion of these cases. When a gorilla in a zoo enclosure gently positions itself between an unconscious fallen child and the rest of the group, that is almost certainly parenting instinct misfiring toward a creature that registered as an infant. When a humpback whale charges between a diver and an approaching tiger shark, that tracks directly onto the documented phenomenon of humpbacks intervening in orca attacks on seals, animals the whale has no relationship with, for reasons that appear to be something close to generalized interspecies protection. In 2012, a research team led by Robert Pittman at NOAA's Southwest Fisheries Science Center published analysis of 57 documented humpback whale interventions in predator attacks. In 87% of cases, the prey being protected was not another whale. It was a seal, a sea lion, a sunfish, a gray whale calf from a different species. Humpbacks intervene on behalf of strangers constantly, habitually, as if protection itself is the behavior rather than protection of specific individuals. Think about that. If a species is already wired to charge at an orca on behalf of a random seal it has never met, extending that same behavior toward a struggling human swimmer stops looking like an anomaly and starts looking like Tuesday. But here is where the overflow theory runs into serious trouble. It cannot explain the honeyguide at all. The honeyguide is not misfiring a protective instinct toward humans. It is not mistaking a honey hunter for a fellow bird in distress. It evolved a recruitment signal because recruitment pays off. That is not overflow. That is strategy. And if one species arrived at genuine strategic cooperation with humans through evolutionary pressure, the question becomes not why animals occasionally help us by accident. The question becomes how many species have figured out at some level that we are specifically useful. Let's go to roughly 15,000 years ago, because this is where the most important animal relationship in human history began, and it began with a decision that neither side fully understood at the time. The current leading hypothesis for dog domestication, developed through analysis of ancient wolf genomes by a team led by Anders Bergstrom at the Francis Crick Institute in 2022, suggests that wolves began associating with human hunter-gatherer groups, not because humans chose them, but because individual wolves chose humans. Specifically, wolves whose nervous systems were wired with slightly lower fear responses toward humans outcompeted their more cautious packmates in environments where human camps meant reliable access to food scraps, warmth, and reduced competition from other predators. Those wolves bred. Their offspring inherited the reduced fear. Over generations, reduced fear became active friendliness. Active friendliness became attunement. Attunement became something that has no clean scientific name, but that every person who has ever owned a dog recognizes instantly. Did you know? Dogs are the only non-primate species that spontaneously looks to human faces for information when solving problems. Wolves raised by humans from birth do not do this. It is not socialization. It is a cognitive shift that happened over 15,000 years of coevolution, so complete that dogs now read human emotional expressions more accurately than chimpanzees, our closest genetic relatives, do. The wolf did not save the human. The wolf recruited the human. And the result was a species so thoroughly rewired around human cooperation that its protective behavior toward us is no longer instinct misfiring. It is the literal behavioral architecture that 15 millennia of shared history built. That is a fundamentally different story than animals accidentally helping us. That is animals deliberately entering a long-term arrangement with us and evolving around it. Now, here is the part that changes everything. We talk about animals saving humans as if we are the passive recipients of biological generosity, as if we are standing outside the system, receiving gifts from nature that we did nothing to earn and cannot explain. The honeyguide hunts with us. The dog evolved toward us. The humpback whale has a documented behavioral tendency toward generalized protection that extends, apparently, to drowning swimmers. But there is a thread running through all of these cases that the standard animal rescue narrative consistently fails to name. We made ourselves worth figuring out, not morally, not cosmically, practically. A honey hunter who honors the honey-guide relationship, who reliably leaves behind the wax and larvae the bird actually wants, creates a bird that guides more willingly next time. A human camp that offered wolves food scraps without lethal retaliation created the selection pressure that built the dog. A marine biologist who spends years quietly building non-threatening presence around a wild whale population increases the probability that when something goes wrong underwater, a whale nearby has filed humans under something other than threat. The uncomfortable implication is not that animals are secretly altruistic. It is that interspecies cooperation is a negotiation, not a gift, and we have been active participants in that negotiation for longer than we have had words for it. Did you know? There are documented cases of wild orca populations in 19th century Australia that developed cooperative hunting arrangements with human whalers at Two-Hole Bay, driving baleen whale prey toward the human boats in exchange for the lips and tongue of the kill. A portion the orcas preferred and the whalers did not. The arrangement lasted for decades and involved specific named individual orcas who were recognized by the human crews. The orcas passed the behavior to their calves. The humans called them by name. Then the industry changed its practices and the cooperation collapsed within a generation. Think about that. A wild apex predator entered a decades-long cooperative arrangement with humans, taught it to their offspring, and then stopped when the humans stopped holding up their end. That is not instinct misfiring. That is a deal being made and then broken. A dolphin built a cooperative hunting relationship with Brazilian fishermen in Laguna that has been studied continuously since 1847, documented in a 2012 paper by Fabio Dara Jorge at the Federal University of Santa Catarina. Specific dolphins signal with specific tail movements when fish are near. Fishermen respond by casting nets. Both sides catch more than they would alone. The behavior is passed down through dolphin generations. Specific dolphins are recognized by specific fishermen. The cooperation is not accidental. It is mutual. It is maintained. It is taught. A wild bird in Africa evolved a dedicated human recruitment signal. A wolf population entered a coevolutionary relationship with us so thorough it produced a new species. Orcas negotiated a hunting arrangement with 19th century whalers. Dolphins in Brazil have been coordinating with fishermen across generations for at least 175 years. Here is the uncomfortable truth. We are not outside the ecosystem looking in at animals occasionally rescuing us by accident. We are inside a web of interspecies relationships, some accidental, some ancient, some still actively negotiated, that we have spent most of recorded history refusing to take seriously because taking it seriously requires acknowledging something deeply inconvenient. Some animals had been figuring out how to use us for a very long time, with more patience, more consistency, and more generational memory than we have ever given them credit for. But here is the twist. The dolphin that pushed a drowning person to shore off New Zealand did not do it because it understood human gratitude or expected future reward. The humpback that shielded a marine biologist from a tiger shark did not negotiate terms. In those individual moments, something older and stranger than strategy was operating. An instinct built not by 15,000 years of coevolution, but by 50 million years of social mammal evolution pressing toward a single ancient recognizable pattern. Creature in distress, capable of helping, choose to help. That pattern is not uniquely human. It never was. Somewhere right now, in water warm enough to be dangerous, a bottlenose dolphin is scanning its environment with senses we cannot fully map. And somewhere in that same water, a human is in trouble. And the dolphin has a decision to make that evolution did not fully automate, that no one taught it to make, that cost something real to make correctly, and sometimes it makes it anyway. If this completely changed how you think about our place in the natural world, hit that like button right now and subscribe, because next time we are asking why ancient humans who had no concept of mental illness still somehow built the world's first institution specifically designed to treat it. The answer is darker, stranger, and considerably more human than you expect. See you in the next one.